Hello, good morning. I am Latrina Jones, and this is my assigned teacher interview for the curriculum for youth children model. My professor is Mr. Flowers. Hello, Mr. Flowers. I am finally getting my interview on track here. This is Mr. Merriweather, and he has agreed to do my teacher interview. He has been teaching for
Arizona State University for 3 years.
For 3 years. So this is, as you can see, Arizona State University, and he has graciously agreed to interview with me. Now, to start the interview, we're going to start with the following questions that were part of the lesson plan. So, Mr. Merriweather, we know that you've been teaching for 3 years, and that the curriculum and the lesson and planning portion of teaching has changed dramatically.
It has.
One of our questions that we focus on in this section is, do you agree that learning should be a playful, joyful, and meaningful experience for the children?
Yes, learning should definitely be a meaningful, playful, happy experience for children, because children tend to learn from people they like. And that's something that a lot of teachers, I think that's a part of, the program that they don't teach, that we're so busy learning what the strategies are that we forget that we're dealing with children. And we're often reminded that even our own kids, if they don't like something we're doing, they're probably not listening.
Exactly.
So if kids are happy and they like you, they tend to learn from you a lot better.
Okay, so earlier we had gotten into the inclusive portion of the new curriculums that are coming out. You have told me that you have more now children with IEPs in your class than before. So it went from basically being like 2 or 3 to like 10?
Yes. Arizona State University's motto is they try to remember and remind the community it's not who we not include in our classrooms, it's who we do include. And because of that, we don't have a special education department. Everyone is included, even if they receive pull-out services throughout the day. Everyone's included in the general ed classroom, because in real life, you're not going to be segregated. So they feel that if they start the children off now with rigorous curriculum, and they modify the curriculum so that it's understood even for people who have IEPs, that when they go out to the real world, they'll be able to adapt a lot better.
Okay, so dealing with special eds or special needs children is a huge basis of the module that I'm learning right now, and before. IEPs, special ed, all of this is under the developmental stage of education, children with special needs. One of my questions was, do you think that planned learning experiences need to reflect and be responsive to children interests, which you just approached a little bit of, their needs and their learning styles? So it's difficult to modify.
It can be very difficult to modify your lesson plans when you have so many students with special needs. So what I do each night, I take about 2 hours and I take a look at what their needs are. I'll prepare a mini lesson a lot of times, and then I'll give them like a formative assessment. And after that, then I kind of take that information, and then I kind of create a lesson plan the next day that mirrors their results from the previous day. So it's kind of modified for everyone, and it's easy. We're working in the I guess a model called the blended learning model.
Okay.
And the blended learning model, it gives children the opportunity to pick and choose what they want to learn when they want to learn it. Now, that's a model that, most teachers are not comfortable with. So after giving a mini lesson, my classroom is split up into 5 different sections. Now, the children have to start the lesson at the table that they're at. And then from that point, they can pick and choose which lesson table they're going to go to next. What I found is that children tend to learn from their peers. So
Right.
if they're happy and they're sitting next to someone along, we've gotten away from the model of sitting there for the entire day. Now the children are on the move.
Right.
And because of this blended learning model, for instance, there may be a table working with vocabulary. There may be a table working with a computer program. There may be another table that's creating stories, maybe a creative learning table, a creative writing table. There may be another table that may be doing phonics work. All of this is after the first mini lesson. They break off into their 5 different sections, and then they go from table to table. Now, they're responsible for turning in all their work at the end of the day. But throughout the day, they're working on different tables, different skills, and it's at their own pace. So we don't have that time, model like we had before. Oh, this needs to be done by 9, this needs to be done by 10.
Right.
The kids feel less pressure when they are working at their own pace in the blended learning model setting, and they're working with their peers and they get to communicate. So we want them to talk. We want them to communicate. We want them to debate their thoughts. And this allows them to work easily throughout the day, and they're happier.
Yeah. So this is a really wonderful new strategy that Arizona has come up with. This also includes the inclusive environment,
That's right.
the integrated curriculum, which a lot of people are not really on board with yet, but should be. I know that there's some advantages and disadvantages, but it's more advantages to the integrated curriculum than it is a disadvantage, I believe, in teaching children, because they do learn more. Children teach us so much more than we relate to them, in my view of things. When you have a curriculum or a strategy meeting in the district and they come up with these lesson plans or the education of what the kids are supposed to be learning, it can be difficult if you're not. This is going back to teachers knowing the development of a child.
That's right.
And acknowledging that each individual child has their different needs. And it's very difficult to teach 30 different individual personalities.
Right.
Exactly. Right. But it's not impossible. I think as educators, we tend to want things to be a little bit easier, but however, I say that teachers are the best professionals there are, but they're also underpaid.
Yes,
because you have to be, teachers are not just, educators, I should say, are a collaborative,
yeah.
Like paraprofessional. And so when you do have to deal with the pull-out services, which is again part of the new inclusive curriculum, when you have to deal with speech therapists,
That's right.
when you have to deal with
school psychologists,
the psychologists, the counselors, and things like that. Not only that, but then you have to deal with the children's parents, because not all parents understand that their child have learning disabilities, or they're not comfortable with it. And if they're not comfortable with it, then the child struggles with it. And so now you have to incorporate the family into what you're doing to try to get across to these children. The little amount of time that we have to shape their little minds, and then they go out and go home, and they're in the world and in the environment. We only get that small window.
That window to work with
them. So, in your everyday lesson plan, what is the best way to relay the information to the children, and not kind of get led astray or kind of get off of task
Well, I tell you what I found is that in most cases, if I follow the I do, we do, they do model, I can
Okay.
usually get a sense or a feel for where they are, and if I need to go more in depth with the lesson before we break off into our different segmented tables. So I'll give them I'll monitor, I'll give them like an example. Say that it's an example that it just involves me, so they're just watching. So I'm modeling an example for them. After I model the example, then the second step is we do. We'll all take another example, but this time I pose the question to the class and I get their feedback. And not only do I take feedback, but all of their feedback has to be in a complete sentence.
Okay.
So the answer of yes, no, doesn't apply in our classroom anymore, because now I need to know, why do you feel that way? Why did you come up with that answer? How did you come up with that answer? And after a little while of just spot checking the different tables and getting their feedback and kind of getting them to talk amongst each other, because sometimes I'll ask them, hey, right now we're going to work with your shoulder partner. That's the person next to them. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to work on this scenario. Ask your shoulder partner, how do they feel about this? And then get that same response. Ask the other person gets an opportunity to ask their shoulder partner, how did they feel and why did they come up with the answer? And then we come back together and we get feedback. After that, after the I do model and then the we do model, then it's their turn to actually show me that they understand the actual information. So then that's when everyone works independently. And it could simply be answering a simple question. After that, I'll collect it up. They'll start what we have after each mini lesson. We have about 5 to 10 minutes of what we call a DEAR. That's drop everything and read. It gives them like a brain break. So we'll do a mini lesson. They'll start their 10-minute DEAR segment while they're reading their leveled reader books, because we have an all-inclusive classroom.
Okay.
Everyone is given a leveled reader at their level, so they can break it open at any time. And while they're doing that, that gives me an opportunity to briefly look over their responses. And then I know whether we can move on or if I need to dive a little bit more into the we do again. Yeah.
Got it.
So
That is awesome.
we do, they do model.
Okay, that's great. So, well, I really want to thank you for doing the interview with me. This has been definitely eye-opening for me. I'm just starting out, so I'm not, I haven't been in the classroom. I have in my past worked at the YMCA, but mostly mine deal with preschoolers.
Gotcha.
And so to have a different perspective, because of course dealing with preschoolers and toddlers,
their needs
it's totally different. And it's a little bit more daunting to try to get, make sure that they're safe and their environment is their learning. I think that we do forget, though, children learn more when they play.
That's right.
When you don't think they're learning. If they don't think they're learning, they think they're just playing. They're getting a whole list of things.
That's right.
that we need to provide. So thank you so much for doing the interview with me. I really appreciate this. And so, Mr. Flowers, you have been patient with me. I thank you so much, and I hope that I addressed everything that I needed to address in this particular assignment. Thank you.